Hello, I'm Eminé. I'm the editor of O Magazine. We've been doing these really lovely small helpings of good stuff every day, our daily doses, and the second letter I pulled from the alphabet was the letter N. The letter N made me think of two things immediately. They made me think of nourishment and nothing, and they're connected. I realised the other day that for the first few weeks of isolation I was feeling this enormous pressure to fill the spaces productively and constructively, to utilise this time in a way that felt worthwhile and important, that niggling sense of not wasting it. And then I was sitting in the garden the other afternoon, and it was a beautiful day, the sun was shining, it was glorious, and for probably about a good 10-15 minutes my brain was nudging me, there's another N, nudging me to go upstairs, get a pile of books or a pile of magazines or my notebook and my pens or my sketchbook or my phone in order to listen to a podcast. And I had to do some quite sincere battle with those thoughts in order to allow myself to just sit there and not move. And once I'd gotten through those initial nudges and niggles, I sat doing absolutely nothing for almost an hour, which feels like an incredible luxury in these lives of ours. And it was as though my eyes attuned to all that was around me in a completely different way. And the song of the birds, realising where they were, which trees they were settling in, watching them fly from one to the other, hearing the neighbours' chickens, the bees buzzing, insects all around me, became aware of things scuttling, of leaves moving, things rustling. There was even a point at which I was there just at the moment at which the flowering part of our little palm tree, we live in a little terraced house, we've got a little terraced garden, we've got this crazy palm tree at the back of it which is really unexpected and brings us so much joy. We love our tree. But just at the moment at which the palm flower, which had been sort of in an really tightly furled in an outer husk, exploded into life. Just the husk just fell away and it just exploded out like a fan. And the whole thing was just utterly awe-inspiring. It was just incredible to bear witness to life, to just be there in the garden, hearing and feeling things, because I wasn't doing anything else, I wasn't doing anything, I was really just feeling at that point. And it really made me consider the nature of nourishment. And when I use the word nourishment, the food that I consume and the way I nourish my body with the food that I eat is just one very small part of that equation. When I talk of nourishment, I really think of all the things that feed me up, not only physically but emotionally and spiritually and psychologically as well. And I consider how I feel based on what I may have watched on the television that evening. If I've watched a really long round of sort of news reports, and I might start to feel quite anxious, unsettled, feel overwhelmed by things, feel unsafe. If I've chosen a book which is perhaps violent or aggressive in some way, and I consider how that feeds me, everything we experience feeds us, it feeds our senses in some way. And if I read something that unsettles me and makes me feel violated in some way, how that leaves me feeling. Does it leave me feeling nourished, or does it leave me feeling wanting and unsettled and uncentered? So I set myself a gentle little challenge, I suppose, of considering the nourishment every day. What is my nourishment? And my nourishment might be a deep bath at the end of the day when my children are in bed, and I will add oils and salts. And this, I'm partial to bathing. I'm the letter B in this lovely alphabet of ours. I talk about bathing for B as well. How do I nourish myself? How do we nourish ourselves? Do we need silence? Do we need to light a candle? Do we want to stretch out and just move our bodies a bit? Do we want to curl up with a book that will leave us feeling inspired and positive and good and well in ourselves? Do we just choose nothing at all? Do we choose to do nothing? Do we choose to just sit and breathe and listen and feel and allow our senses to go on their own little safari? What do we choose day by day? What is nourishing us? And you know, as a holistic therapist too, I talk about nourishment a great deal, because what's very true is that often when we feel a bit lacking in spiritual or emotional nourishment, and perhaps some of us do at this point where we haven't been able to hold our loved ones close, and a lot of us are missing people, we can feel undernourished because we may not be getting the physical nourishment that we want. Do we not perhaps feel as spiritually nourished as we may? You know, if we haven't been out for long walks, we haven't done those activities and things, we haven't been able to visit museums or galleries, we haven't been as immersed in the arts perhaps we ordinarily would. Do we feel that we are stymied or stifled in some way? And then when we begin to feel that we're lacking nourishment in those ways, we can seek extra comfort food, actually, because we want nourishment full stop, and our bodies don't always differentiate. So I wanted to share those thoughts with you, really, which have come up with me recently. Knowing that how we choose to nourish ourselves is so incredibly important, very, very much so at this present time, where those things that perhaps would have been most nourishing to us are no longer available. So if your usual modes of nourishment are no longer available, how might you find some others? How might you choose to invite other avenues in? They could be creative, they could be restful, they could be restorative, they could be absolutely nothing at all. It could be the very acceptance and the embracing of nothingness, of not giving yourself anything to do, and perhaps a little more often than you'd ever imagined, of just sitting somewhere where you feel at peace and comfortable, and just letting your senses guide you. And we talk a lot about, you know, meditation in modern life and the importance of being able to rest our minds and still our minds, but we don't need a specific practice to do it. You know, we don't need a teacher, we don't need props, we don't need really to be taught these things. We as human beings are incredibly good at being able to to self-regulate and self-nourish. We understand what we need. Our intuition is a very powerful tool. So why don't you try it? If you try a little bit of nourishment through choosing every now and again to do nothing, to just see how that feels.